That's the point. You can watch and make up your own mind as to what it appears Brittney Griner is saying. It's not certain what Griner says. There is one way to find out. Ask Brittney Griner. However, no one has done that except for Outkick. It's been over 2 weeks since Griner said this. Instead, the WNBA was investigating a bogus race hoax made up by Angel Reese about Indiana.
It was supposed to be just another intense WNBA matchup, but in a matter of seconds, everything spiraled into chaos. Cameras caught Brittney Griner mouthing something on the sideline after fouling out against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, and whatever those words were, they exploded across social media like wildfire. Lip readers, fans, analysts, and even former athletes rushed to interpret what Griner said, but one interpretation quickly gained traction: trash white girl. The phrase ignited outrage, raising serious questions about whether a racial slur had just been uttered on national television, and if the league had any intention of addressing it. What came next wasn't an apology, clarification, or even a statement from the WNBA. Instead, there was silence. Deafening, calculated silence. And it was in that silence that former Olympic swimmer and women's sports advocate Riley Gaines stepped in, delivering a brutal takedown of the league's double standards and drawing attention to what she, and many others, saw as blatant hypocrisy.
I have never seen an organization more committed to self-imploding than the WNBA. A few weeks ago, I made this video highlighting how it appears Brittney Griner said bleep white girl after fouling out in a game against Indiana Fever, the team that Caitlin Clark plays for. Some people like Jamel Hill, former ESPN host, says that no, she didn't say bleep white girl. She says bleep whack call, to which she then went on to call me a grifter for even pointing this out, but besides the point. You can watch and make up your own mind.
This wasn't just about one controversial comment anymore. It became a moment of reckoning for a league already under fire for how it handles its biggest stars. If double standards, selective outrage, and protected narratives have truly become the WNBA's foundation, then Gaines just cracked it wide open. Smash the like button if the truth should never be ignored, and drop a comment. What do you think Brittney Griner actually said in that viral clip? Whack call or white girl? Let us know what you saw. The moment Brittney Griner walked off the court after fouling out, cameras captured what appeared to be a casual remark. But that single second of footage would become the most dissected clip in women's basketball this year. While some claimed she muttered whack call in frustration over officiating, others saw something far more inflammatory, what looked like trash white girl. The timing, the angle, and the emotional charge of the situation added fuel to the growing controversy. This wasn't just an angry reaction to a referee's decision. It came immediately after being outplayed by Caitlin Clark in a game where Indiana sealed a 5-point win. Griner's body language was unmistakably hostile, and to many observers, it didn't look like a complaint about officiating. It looked personal. Even casual fans began questioning what was really said, and more importantly, why the league hadn't addressed it. The debate deepened as the video went viral, prompting fans and critics to slow it down, zoom in, and analyze frame by frame. Yet amid all the noise, the league refused to clarify. The clip gained millions of views, but WNBA leadership remained tight-lipped. That silence began to look less like restraint and more like protection. And it signaled something far more troubling than just a moment of trash talk. It exposed a league unwilling to confront its own uncomfortable truths. As speculation surrounding Brittney Griner's comments spread like wildfire, the WNBA's response was nowhere to be found. Days passed, then a week, then 2. Still no official statement, no internal review, no acknowledgement of the viral video that had fans, players, and media figures debating its implications. What stood out wasn't just the league's refusal to address the controversy, it was the blatant contrast with how they'd handled previous situations. Just weeks earlier, the WNBA had launched a formal investigation into allegations made by Angel Reese, who claimed she had been subjected to racist taunts by Indiana Fever fans. That investigation resulted in no evidence, no findings, and no punishment, but was pursued aggressively nonetheless. In this case, however, there was video evidence, slow-motion footage, lip readers, public outcry, and yet the league's leadership remained silent, as if the incidents simply didn't exist. For many, that silence confirmed what they already suspected. The WNBA picks and chooses what issues to take seriously based not on truth or fairness, but on which players are involved and what narratives must be protected. The absence of accountability became the story. Instead of extinguishing the controversy, the silence made it louder. The league's refusal to confront it head-on created an opening that critics like Riley Gaines would soon charge through, and once she stepped in, the WNBA's credibility began to unravel. The The tipping point came when Riley Gaines, a former NCAA swimmer turned outspoken advocate for women's sports, entered the conversation. Unlike basketball insiders who often tread carefully to avoid backlash, Gaines had no allegiance to the WNBA, no sponsorship ties, and no interest in preserving the league's fragile image. That made her statements all the more powerful. When others hesitated, she stepped forward and said exactly what millions were thinking.
Thursday night, Indiana Fever and Atlanta Dream played. Indiana Fever is where Caitlin Clark plays. Atlanta Dream is where Brittney Griner plays. Now you tell me what it looks like Brittney Griner is saying here.
That we were talking about earlier today.
For a little bit of context, this was in the fourth quarter after Brittney Griner fouled out against Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever would go on to win by 5. Now I'm going to tell you what I think she said. Let's play it back. Looks to me like she is saying trash and then calling Caitlin Clark a bleep white girl. Just a reminder, this is who Joe Biden traded for the Russian merchant of death. So many WNBA players hate Caitlin Clark so much when she is the best thing that could have happened to the league. And she's not the best thing that happened to the league because she's white. It's because she's a good player. It's because she's the best player. Now, imagine if Caitlin Clark said the inverse of this. It would be reprehensible, condemned, and understandably so. You've got all of these individual players. You have sports commentators, people like Ryan Clark, who constantly tout of the racial tensions that exist in the league, when in reality, they are the ones perpetuating and amplifying these racial tensions with their anti-white hatred.
Her commentary wasn't vague. It was sharp, direct, and impossible to ignore. In a single viral post, Gaines called out both Brittney Griner and the WNBA, accusing them of hiding behind selective outrage while refusing to address a racially charged comment aimed at the league's most valuable star. What gave her words even more weight was her history. Gaines wasn't new to controversy. She had been thrust into the national spotlight for opposing biological males competing in women's swimming events. She had endured media attacks, online harassment, and public vilification, all for standing up for what she believed was fair. So when she turned her attention to the WNBA, it wasn't just noise. It was a moral indictment. This wasn't about basketball drama anymore. It was about systemic hypocrisy, media manipulation, and an organization that appeared more interested in shielding its insiders than defending its core values. Riley Gaines didn't just toss gasoline on a simmering fire. She dropped the match, and the explosion forced everyone to look. As the controversy grew, many looked to the sports media giants for clarity. But instead of transparency, what followed was a masterclass in spin. ESPN, the most powerful voice in American sports journalism, didn't investigate. They didn't press Griner for answers. Instead, they worked overtime to dilute the narrative.
Being at a graduation, this girl has to be one of the most miserable people in the history of this country. All she does is get on social media and just make shit up to try to cause division. Earlier today, she posted this video, and I just watch the video, because it's nothing but bullshit and her trying to cause a divide because her life is miserable. So as you can see in the tweet, Riley Gaines wants to speculate that Brittney Griner called Caitlin Clark trash and then said, "fucking white girls." Now here's something to think about. When you're trying to lip read and someone tells you what they think someone said, that's all you can envision them saying. So when you're watching that, it looks like she says, "fucking white girls." But what if you thought she said, "fucking whack calls"? Look at her lips.
Prominent figures like former ESPN host Jemele Hill dismissed the accusations outright, claiming Griner never said anything offensive and suggesting critics were twisting the footage for political gain. Some went as far as calling those who questioned the video grifters, attempting to discredit the outrage rather than address the core issue. It became obvious that the media's priority wasn't truth, it was protection. Protection for a league they had invested heavily in, and protection for a player they had long supported. But the deflections only made matters worse. Every effort to explain away the video without proper investigation came off as calculated damage control. For fans watching this unfold, the message was loud and clear. When it's someone the media favors, accountability is optional. The public trust in ESPN's objectivity, already in decline, sank even lower. And while they scrambled to change the narrative, Riley Gaines continued to dominate the conversation, exposing the cracks in a media machine designed not to inform, but to shield the powerful.
What Griner says, there is one way to find out. Ask Brittney Griner. However, no one has done that except for Outkick. It's been over 2 weeks since Griner said this. Instead, the WNBA was investigating a bogus race hoax made up by Angel Reese about Indiana Fever fans. And I say bogus because they found no evidence that supports Angel Reese's claims. So we at Outkick applied for media credentials to cover Brittney Griner's team, the Atlanta Dreams, game on June 6th, to which, shocker, they denied us. We've never had trouble getting media credentials with any professional sports league in the past, but wouldn't you know, now they suddenly have very limited space, which is total baloney. They just want to suppress any sort of uncomfortable inquiries from media. Regardless, we at Outkick are going to keep asking the tough questions, the questions that people want the answer to. And if you do call yourself a reporter or a journalist from an outlet like ESPN or any other sports outlet for that matter, and you have access to these settings and you're not asking those questions, you're really no reporter or journalist at all.
The double standard wasn't just visible, it was undeniable. On one hand, the WNBA had devoted time, resources, and official statements to investigate completely unproven accusations, like Angel Reese's false claims of racial abuse from Indiana Fever fans. That probe, despite producing no credible evidence, was given top priority. But on the other hand, when a viral video surfaced showing one of the league's biggest stars possibly making a racially charged remark toward Caitlin Clark, a player responsible for revitalizing interest in the WNBA, the response was silence. No inquiry, no statement, no accountability. This pattern suggested something more dangerous than simple negligence. It revealed a league that enforces discipline and scrutiny not based on facts, but on who is involved and how the fallout might impact their image. The WNBA's willingness to protect certain players while sacrificing others painted a picture of selective justice that deeply undermined the league's integrity. And for fans who had just begun tuning in thanks to Clark's rising star power, the hypocrisy was staggering. Riley Gaines zeroed in on this failure with surgical precision. She wasn't just exposing a moment, she was exposing a culture. A culture that punishes inconvenient players while excusing favored ones.
News. I ain't never seen this lady a day in my life. Why'd y'all hire this woman?
The USA basketball chair actually said it would be irresponsible to put Caitlin Clark on the U.S. women's Olympic basketball team, all while putting Brittney Griner on the team. I think with the extreme controversy that she brings.
Let me jump in, Riley, because you said a lot there. I'm not sure what you mean by the controversy that Brittney Griner brings to the game. I mean, that's kind of not fair to say without explanation.
Well, I mean, I think given everything that happened overseas, given that she was put in jail, I mean, the controversy is certainly there, whether we want it there or not.
Not her fault and wrongly accused. Let's be fair. That's Riley. I like you a lot too. That's not right. She was wrongfully accused. That is not fair to bring that up. So we're gonna delete that. Okay, let's you and I continue.
She literally tried to tell Riley Gaines that Brittney Griner was unlawfully detained. What are you saying? Fox, get this lady off y'all show.
The scandal laid bare the truth. The WNBA didn't just have a PR problem, it had a credibility crisis. One that could no longer be hidden behind silence or spin. The controversy surrounding Brittney Griner's alleged comment took an even darker turn when critics began revisiting the circumstances of her return to the United States. Just over a year prior, the U.S. government had executed a highly controversial prisoner swap, trading Griner, who had been detained in Russia on drug charges, for Victor Bout, a notorious international arms dealer nicknamed the Merchant of Death. That exchange had already drawn criticism, but in the wake of Griner's perceived insult toward Caitlin Clark, it reignited public outrage. Riley Gaines didn't hold back. She directly questioned the values of a league and a country that would orchestrate such a high-stakes trade only to watch the beneficiary seemingly disrespect one of the WNBA's brightest stars. The irony was thick. A global arms trafficker was released in exchange for an athlete who then made headlines not for her play, but for a remark that tore open a national debate. Gaines used this moment to hammer home the point. What kind of message does it send when someone who is saved through international diplomacy turns around and disrespects the very system that fought for her freedom? The Griner Bout trade had been controversial from the beginning. Now it became symbolic of the WNBA's growing identity crisis, a league willing to absorb enormous political and moral costs to protect a figure who, in turn, undermined its most promising future. It was no longer just a scandal, it was a national embarrassment. As public scrutiny intensified, one outlet made a bold move to get answers. Outkick, known for its blunt coverage of sports controversies, applied for media credentials to directly question Brittney Griner during an upcoming Atlanta Dream game. But in a telling response, the WNBA denied their request. According to Outkick, this was the first time they'd been shut out of access by any professional sports league. The reason given: limited space. For many, it was an obvious deflection. The denial didn't just block a media outlet, it sent a message to every journalist paying attention. Certain questions would not be tolerated. The WNBA wasn't just avoiding controversy, it was actively suppressing it. Riley Gaines seized on this moment to amplify her criticism. She pointed out the absurdity of a league that welcomed sweeping investigations over false claims, yet refused even basic access when real evidence demanded accountability. The message became clear: the league was more interested in silencing dissent than confronting truth. This wasn't journalism being denied, it was damage control in its rawest form. And it backfired spectacularly. Fans, commentators, and even neutral observers began asking why a league that claimed to support transparency and social justice would go out of its way to block legitimate inquiries. By denying Outkick, the WNBA not only added fuel to the fire, it confirmed what many feared: the league was circling the wagons around a scandal it had no intention of resolving. In the middle of a full-blown media blackout, one voice kept cutting through the noise with relentless clarity: Riley Gaines. What made her criticism so impactful wasn't just the substance of her message, but the contrast it highlighted. While the WNBA, ESPN, and other major outlets danced around the issue, Gaines went straight to the heart of the matter. The league had become a machine of selective outrage, shielding its favorites and silencing dissent. She wasn't part of the basketball world. She had no financial ties or corporate sponsorships to protect. That gave her the freedom to say what others wouldn't. In interviews, posts, and appearances, she kept hammering the same point: the WNBA was collapsing under the weight of its own double standards. Her viral quote, "I've never seen an organization more committed to self-imploding," resonated far beyond sports. It echoed in political circles, media watchdogs, and among fans who had once rooted for the league's growth. Gaines became a lightning rod, and in doing so, exposed just how afraid the establishment was of honest questions. While institutions like ESPN and the WNBA tiptoed around controversy, Gaines turned it into a national conversation. She didn't just criticize one incident, she laid bare a culture of hypocrisy that had festered beneath the surface for years. In a landscape where image is everything, Gaines reminded everyone that silence and spin are not the same as integrity, and the league's refusal to confront hard truths would come at a steep cost. At the center of the entire firestorm stood Caitlin Clark, the player responsible for one of the biggest surges in WNBA viewership and relevance in decades. Her transition from college superstar to professional phenom brought millions of new eyes to the league. Sold-out arenas, record-breaking jersey sales, and viral highlight reels became the new norm wherever she played. She wasn't just a talented player, she was the league's most valuable asset. Yet, despite her contributions, Clark found herself unprotected, often targeted, and now potentially insulted on national television without a single word of support from league officials. The silence was deafening. In any other professional league, a breakout star like Clark would be defended, celebrated, and elevated. But within the WNBA, resentment toward her success seemed to overshadow her impact. Some players downplayed her accomplishments. Others questioned her stardom. And when controversy erupted, the league's leadership chose neutrality, an absence of support that felt more like betrayal. Riley Gaines understood the weight of that silence. She warned that fans wouldn't stick around if they felt their favorite player was being unfairly treated. And she was right. Clark had brought in an entirely new generation of fans, many of whom had never watched a WNBA game before. But those fans were watching now, not just the games, but how the league treated its stars. Every moment of indifference, every instance of selective enforcement, and every avoided question wasn't just a failure, it was a message. And for millions watching, it was the wrong one. The WNBA now stands at a critical juncture. This controversy has forced the league's leadership to face a question far larger than a single video or one player's remark. What kind of organization does the WNBA want to be? It can continue protecting its inner circle, ignoring valid criticism, and shielding favored players from accountability. Or it can embrace the difficult but necessary work of building trust, starting with treating every player, every incident, and every question with equal seriousness. Riley Gaines has effectively forced the league's hand. Her words made it impossible for the WNBA to quietly sweep this under the rug. The league can either listen, reflect, and reform, or it can double down on the very hypocrisy that brought it here. But one thing is clear, the public is now watching. Fans, media, and former athletes are all paying attention to how this moment is handled. The silence that once worked as a shield is now a spotlight. And the longer it drags on, the more it confirms every accusation Gaines has made. The question isn't whether the league is flawed. That's already been exposed. The real question is whether it has the courage to fix what's broken, or whether it will let bias, fear, and politics continue to erode the foundation that players like Caitlin Clark are trying to build. This is more than a media scandal. It's a test of integrity, and the clock is ticking. Riley Gaines didn't just speak up, she reshaped the conversation. What began as a viral video of a sideline remark has grown into one of the most consequential reckonings the WNBA has ever faced. With one explosive intervention, Gaines ripped the lid off a system built on selective outrage and protected narratives. Her message was blunt but necessary. The league's refusal to apply equal standards, its suppression of media scrutiny, and its silence in the face of video evidence all point to an organization more interested in controlling perception than upholding fairness. And in doing so, it's risking everything. The rise of Caitlin Clark should have been a turning point, a moment of revival for women's basketball. Instead, the league has fumbled the opportunity, treating its most marketable star as a threat to the status quo rather than the foundation of a new era. This isn't just about Griner's words. It's about the league's failure to respond. It's about denying access to reporters, ignoring fans' concerns, and allowing favoritism to guide policy. Riley Gaines forced the spotlight onto these contradictions, and now that it's there, the WNBA can't hide. It can evolve, or it can crumble under the weight of its own hypocrisy. But what's clear is that this moment won't be forgotten. The fans are watching. The athletes are watching. And the question hanging over the league's future is no longer whether a comment was made, but whether the league has the courage to finally stand for something real. If this video opened your eyes to what's happening behind the scenes, hit that like button and make sure to subscribe for more. And drop a comment below. Should the WNBA finally confront its double standards, or is it already too late to turn this around?